Derek Chauvin trial, and people are preoccupied with it. That, by the way, is in itself a tragedy. I don't say there should not have been a trial. There should have been a trial. But the preoccupation of the country is entirely media and left-wing induced. We don't even know the name of the police officer at the U.S. Capitol who, unprovoked, shot to death a white right-wing demonstrator at the Capitol. We don't even know the person. We suspect it's a male. We don't even know his name, let alone is he not on trial. Now, why is that? Because the dead person is white and because the dead person is a right-winger. That's why. So it is unworthy of attention. Unworthy of attention. It is a scandal that we do not know who that officer is and why the woman was shot to death. Is that unfair? Of course it's not unfair. The media direct what the people are concerned with. And once people are concerned with it, I have to be concerned with it because then I'm neglecting what people are concerned with. That's the way it works. It's unfortunate. I try to withstand it much of the time, but you can't do it all the time. Then I'm ignoring what is happening. Even if what is happening is based on exaggeration or lie, I have to cover it because it is preoccupying people. Anyway, there is no male-female hour today. That is the reason. I don't know whether the verdict was fairly arrived at or was arrived at in part, in large measure, in small measure, due to intimidation. However, there is no question that when you have mobs outside a courtroom waiting to explode, and mobs all over the country waiting to explode and burn down parts of cities, and your name will come out if you did not render the verdict the left wants. Got to be a pretty heroic person. And heroes are not common. You have to be a pretty heroic person to have not voted for all three. Though I don't know, would there have been rioting if two of the three charges he was found guilty on, but not on the second-degree murder charge? I think there would have been rioting, but not as much. I just don't know. They wanted all three done. For those who believe that police cannot be found guilty in a crime against a civilian, especially a black civilian, this was a great moment for them. As I mentioned in the first hour, I saw a video of a black man who just held back tears. It was clear when he heard the verdict. It was a very touching video. It's a very sad video because he truly believes that blacks are singled out by police to die, and there is no truth to that. Blacks are singled out by black murderers to die, and that does not bring the same tears to blacks or whites. Imagine. I want you to imagine a media that actually was not left. Imagine for a moment that as much attention were paid to a 6-year-old killed by a black gang member in some inner city in the country, Baltimore, Chicago, New York, L.A. And we learned as much about the family grieving for their 6-year-old as we did about the Floyd family. Just imagine that for a moment, what a different America it would be. But there are so many of them, of these innocents killed by blacks in the inner city, dwarfing the number killed by police, that it's Stalin's old line, one death is a tragedy and a million is a statistic. Of course, it's not a million killed here, but I'm just giving you the Stalin line. And that is the world in which we live. It will have no effect, however. I was mentioning to you the effect that it might have on those who believe that a white policeman cannot be found guilty for killing a black, or even, some will contend, almost any civilian. And will it have any effect? Yeah, I'll tell you the effect that it has on the left. The mob works. Intimidation works. You think there will be fewer riots the next time the press decides to play something up? Let me give you an example here about Dante Wright, right? That's another killing of a black man. That a lot of the activists raised his name. Oh, now, what about Dante Wright? American Spectator reported the following. We never hear the last of these names: Eric Garner, Alton Sterling, Michael Brown, George Floyd, Rashad Brooks, and now Dante Wright. We will never hear the last of them because there will always be more, and because certain people are invested in forcing us to hear about them. But what they demand we hear isn't the truth. So the author goes on to speak about another author who, remember, Dante Wright was theoretically stopped because he had things hanging from his deodorant hanging from his rear view mirror, air freshener. Billy Binion of Reason magazine pronounced Dante Wright dead as a result of that idiotic statute. He's wrong. The law, disgracefully ridiculous though it might be, did not kill Dante Wright. Dante Wright, or at least the life he led, killed Dante Wright. He wasn't pulled over because he had air fresheners hanging from his rearview mirror. He was pulled over because he had expired tags on his license plate. Then it was noticed that he had air fresheners hanging from the rearview mirror. Then it was noticed he had an outstanding warrant. Then it was noticed he resisted arrest. Then it was noticed he had an outstanding... Oh, I read that part, I'm sorry. Then it was noticed that he got back in his car and drove away from the police, which is what he had done before. Wright had fled from officers in June. The circumstances from which that police encounter arose make for scintillating reading. He was reported to the police for waving a gun around. And when the cops showed up, it turned out Wright didn't have a permit for the gun. He ran away and he was cited in order to appear in court. He didn't, which occasioned the warrant for his arrest. That's not all that appears on Wright's record. There was the February arrest for aggravated robbery. By the way, why was he out? Arrested for aggravated robbery. There was a disorderly conduct charge arising from a 2019 incident. There was the guilty plea in late 2019 to possession and sale of marijuana. And there was an arrest warrant for armed robbery. Armed robbery. Is that serious enough? Wright was accused of chokeholding a woman and threatening her at gunpoint, demanding $820 that she had intended to use to pay her rent. This is the Dante Wright that the police it's reported, they just pulled him over because driving while black and having deodorant hanging from your rearview mirror. What did I say? Deodorant, air freshener. I'm sorry. It's correct. It's different. Air freshener. Back in a moment.